And there's, a bunch of these ads out there. There's one where a girl is talking about how she's shedding her individual skin and taking on a universal skin to build a new world when she puts on this jacket. And, let's talk about all of it. Let's talk about the figures they use, the fact that they're in militant formation, the fact that the people that they show never had people in militant formation to get their ideas across, Gandhi, Martin Luther King Jr., but they're trying to sell this as kind of like this, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like pseudo-fascism. They're wearing red, white, and black. What's your take on this, Lou?
Well, I think we've had a growing fascism in this country for some time. The Bush administration certainly was a fascist regime, and the Obama administration is stepping it up. What is fascism? It's not just an epithet. It's an actual political and economic system that involves a government-business partnership, big business, big government, in cahoots against the rest of us. Mm-hmm. It involves militarism. It involves crazed nationalism. It involves the suppression of civil liberties, and frequently it involves a uniform party militia. Mm-hmm. So we didn't have that until now. You're right, the Obama people seem to be intent on setting up some kind of uniformed party militia among the youth, and of course, as your clip said, he went back during the campaign, he talked about a civilian security arm that he wants to set up of the federal government. Maybe like the neighborhood watch committees in Cuba, I don't know, but it's not good news.
Well, it seems even worse that they're now coming out and saying, we're going to use the Boy Scouts to fight terror. And the example that they use is a disgruntled Iraq war veteran come back home, and now he's a homegrown terrorist, and he's shooting people from a tower. Here come the Boy Scouts in their Explorers program, and then you see the photos in the New York Times, and they're giving these kids mock shotguns and assault weapons. It's blowing my mind, Lou.
Well, what is terrorism? Terrorism is like a movable feast. It's whatever the government says it is. It's whatever the government, it's in fact, resisting the government is terrorism. So that's people overseas, and that's people here. Now, of course, sometimes some of the stuff they call terrorism is evil. Sometimes it's just their epithet to demonize their enemies. So, that's what they're doing with the Boy Scouts. And yeah, we have, for some time in this country, this is not new with Obama, for some time in this country we've had a government and a reigning ideology that saw absolutely nothing beyond the reach of the state. There is nobody in Washington, with the exception of Ron Paul, who thinks that there are areas of society, family life, community life, business life, personal liberties, who thinks that's beyond the government. Whatever the government decides to do to you, in your family, in your home, in your business, in your community, it's okay. The government has total power over us in the view of the reigning ideology, total power to take your kids, send them to some evil, crazy war overseas, or to set up these kinds of institutions. And of course, we've had, as happened with the private security guards hired by the federal government in the Katrina disaster, some very alarming stuff of use of military power and quasi-military power. And in this case, sort of youth, Red Pioneer or Hitler Youth or whatever military, future military power. Who are they intending? What are they intending to do with these groups? They're intending to intimidate us, so that if you have a problem with what I like to call death aid, which will be the federal medical program, maybe you'll get a visit from the city care youth to try to dissuade you from making a complaint. This is the sort of thing that goes on in authoritarian countries, and we are fast approaching that.
And while this goes on, the Supreme Court just on Tuesday ruled that in certain circumstances, of course it's always Orwellian, they say, we really didn't take away this right, it's only in certain cases. But they ruled 5-4, and again, it's a close vote. It's never 9-0 or 7-2. It's always 5-4. We were so close not taking away your civil liberties, but we decided to. They ruled that a lawyer no longer needs to be present in certain circumstances for police to interrogate you. Now, yes, have they been doing this, in the past, in some other cases where they'll lie to somebody, they'll entrap somebody, they'll, physically abuse somebody and interrogate them? Yes, but now the Supreme Court has ruled that they can interrogate you without a lawyer, and that will not be thrown out of court. What's your take on that?
Well, what is the Supreme Court? It's 9 government lawyers who make decisions in favor of the government. That's what these, we're taught to think of these as some sort of ethereal guys up in a cloud. These are government bureaucrats intent on expanding government power and expanding the power of the Supreme Court, too, within the government. And, yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, we have, after all, President Obama, building on what Bush has done, has said he wants the power in a formal way for the president, and then, of course, all the president's zillion employees, to take any person, American or foreign, put them in a prison camp, keep it secret that they're in a prison camp, and keep them there indefinitely and have the ability to interrogate them with torture, of course, on his own say-so. So they're undoing, 1,000 years of development of civil liberties, and we're watching the establishment of the totalitarian state. And again, this didn't begin with Obama. I mean, really, Franklin Roosevelt was our first fascist president. So this has been going on for some time. But American freedoms are evaporating, like water in the sun in Washington, D.C. in the summertime.
Well, they really are. And, another story that we've been carrying here at InfoWars is just a week and a half ago in Wisconsin, a judge ruled there that the police could outfit somebody who was not under probable cause, did not have a warrant for an investigation. They could outfit their car without them knowing with a GPS device and track and trace them, and this was okay. I mean, this police state has gotten completely out of control. I mean, I have a story in front of me. High-tech sleuth helps reduce truancy. This 17-year-old girl is forced to carry this GPS device that has these different buttons, and at certain times she'll have to actually punch in her coordinates, and if her coordinates are outside of that, she gets thrown out of school. I mean, how much more can we take from Big Brother? It just keeps expanding and expanding and getting more and more out of control.
Well, you mentioned one thing that every parent ought to consider. If you have your children in the government schools that are entirely run by the federal government and the Department of Education in Washington, what are you doing? What are you doing turning over your children to people who want to put an ankle bracelet on them to keep track of them? Mm-hmm. I mean, where they're totally indoctrinated every day in the glories of government, the glories of government power, and why the government should be able to do anything it wants to them and to you, and why if you have your own views on religion or some other subject the government doesn't like, well, the heck with you, and the kids should be responsive to the government. The public schools exist to take children, in effect, away from their parents, away from their community, make them little robots for D.C. So, parents, if you've got your kids in the government schools, please rethink it.
I want to get your take on this former soldier, Ralph Peters. He's been on USA Today, contributed to Fox News, writes for the New York Post.
And he's a monster.
Yeah. In his latest column, he starts talking about really something that's kind of already happening, but not, outward practice. He talks about blackouts, media censorship, which is already happening in this country. But then he says, ultimately, military attacks on partisan media, saying they literally need to kill the media in order to, further the war effort and save us from the terrorists. Now, this has already happened on several levels over in the Middle East, but it seems like he's talking about this happening in this country. And of course, our news is already blacked out and censored. Anybody with half a brain that's paying attention to what's going on knows this. But for him to put this out there like it's okay to kill the media, I mean, what's your take?
Well, Ralph Peters is a neocon. Mm-hmm. Therefore, he's a totalitarian, some kind of social democrat in economics, but a totalitarian in terms of the warfare state and in terms of civil liberties. And already the U.S. government kills foreign reporters. I mean, when Bush started his aggression, both against Afghanistan and against Iraq, they bombed Al Jazeera stations.
That's right.
They bombed the media that was telling the truth. So the U.S. already does this. I guess Ralph Peters would like to shoot people in this country who aren't going along with the ABC, NBC, New York Times, Washington Post line.
All right, we'll come back. Final segment of the Lew Rockwell after this. It's the Alex Jones Show. I'm Jason Bermas, PrisonPlanet.tv and the InfoWarrior.com.